What's up you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB and welcome to the Awesome MTB Short Travel Trail Bike Buyer's Guide. What's up you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB and welcome back to the Awesome MTB Short Travel Trail Bike Buyer's Guide. Unfortunately today we have a little bit of an awkward one. Right here we have the Revel Rascal V2, so it's going to be the SL version, a lighter weight overall carbon profile, and unfortunately a few days ago while shooting this project we learned the news that Revel bikes will be shutting their doors, or I think they have shut their doors. We don't know where they are in terms of the business structure. From what we have seen so far, it looks like they will be liquidating their inventory, so these bikes might actually be at an insane sale on Revel's website. Unfortunately, we were also friends with the team at Revel. They were amazing people on their staff, so that was really sad news to learn. After spending so much time on the Rascal as well as the Ritual, the bikes are amazing. So yeah, it's a definitely unfortunate situation overall, and also unfortunately an indicator of where the bike industry is right now, but that might be a story for another video later on. So what is the Revel Rascal SL? The Revel Rascal is a 130mm 29er with 140mm of travel up front. It sports a 65.5-degree head angle, a CBF suspension design, which is kind of what makes Revel bikes unique, or was what made Revel bikes unique. It is going to be weird to use the word was as in past tense, but that is also an indicator of how recently we heard the news. Now the current Rascal SL shaved about 200 grams over the previous iteration, which was released last year. So yeah, this thing's definitely lighter. It also has this really cool cactus color, which has a little bit of a sparkle to it. In this test bike, we have a RockShox Lyric up front with 140mm of travel. In the rear, we have a RockShox Super Deluxe rear shock with 130mm of travel. We have an EXO transmission build kit on here. Up front for the cockpit, we also have another past tense story. These are Trail One bars, which used to be Brian Kennedy's brand, but in a recent video, BKXC announced he would be stepping away from Trail One. But yeah, we have Trail One carbon handlebars. And for tires, we have a Continental Cryptodal up front and a Zinodal in the rear. I still think those names are ridiculous. For the dropper post, we have a Bike Yoke Revive dropper, and I actually threw on an Ergon SM Enduro comp saddle on there just to get a little bit more on top of that bottom bracket. Love that saddle that I've been testing out from Ergon. What made Revel bikes unique was the CBF suspension design. The CBF suspension platform is also found in Canefield bikes. They were actually the original founders. And Lance Canefield, the owner of Canefield, actually made a video about the Revel situation, so definitely check it out. We'll link that video in the description as well. Like I said, I've been really enjoying my time on the Rascal. I feel like a lot of riders out there would have absolutely loved this bike. And if you do have one, I definitely recommend holding on to it because there's not too many other bikes that have a similar feel out on the trails. Now, before we take this bike out on the trails to show you guys how it rides, I do want to take a quick second and thank the sponsor of this video series, and that is Bicycle. Let's face it, you guys, buying and selling used bikes is insanely tough right now, which is why we're stoked to partner up with Bicycle.
If you didn't know, Bicycle is one of the largest online marketplaces where you can go to buy or sell pre-owned bikes. They have more than 30,000 listings on their site, and the best part about it is that the process is insanely easy both for buyers and sellers. Are you in the market for a used bike? No more sketchy meetups at random places. They make the buying process quick, simple, and most importantly, safe. With a no-hassle return policy, if the bike you buy isn't exactly what was shown on the listing, they will take care of you. Plus, get fast and safe payments without having to deal with strangers. Want to sell your used bike? They make the posting process super quick and simple, even helping you come up with a price for a used bike and then sending everything you need to pack and ship the bike up when it sells, as well as a shipping label.
Yes, you heard that correctly. They take care of everything for you, including sending you a shipping box, getting you a shipping label, and even scheduling a pickup with your local delivery service. It really is the easiest way to sell your used bikes.
Recently, they also added a component section to the website, so now you can sell any old bike parts you have that have been lying around or pick up some gear for yourself and save a ton of money.
Once again, you guys, there's never been an easier way to buy or sell used bikes. Now, we all have a bike that's been lying around. We've been meaning to sell it. The cool thing is Bicycle is actually gonna be waiving 100% of the selling fees during the duration of this buyer's guide. Don't worry if you're here in the future, they still take care of friends of the channel. So be sure to check out the link in the description. Huge thank you to Bicycle for being an amazing platform to buy and sell used bikes. And with that being said, let's get back into the series. Once again, you guys, in today's market, it is very tough to sell a used bike. So any help you can get is awesome. And I can't recommend Bicycle enough. Not only are they the #1 place to buy and sell your used bike, they also do components as well. And once again, that coupon code will be 100% of the selling fees in the description of this video. It ends at the end of the series, but then it goes down. They'll still take care of friends of the channel. So be sure to check it out and definitely consider Bicycle whether you're in the market for a used bike or you're trying to sell your own. All right, you guys, welcome to a bittersweet review. Like I said, we heard the news about Revel bikes just a few days ago. We still have this bike in the shootout, but it does sound like this might be our last time on a Revel bike, which is very unfortunate because the Revel Rascal is insanely fun. And the crew at Revel has been doing an amazing job. Hopping on the single track portion of Rocket, the first thing you notice with CBF is how efficient it feels out of the saddle, especially on these more sprint style sections. What an amazing pedaling platform. And yeah, it's very impressive how it sits a little higher in its travel when you're pedaling, but when you need it to open up, the suspension gives you that traction you want. Love that combo. Now the fun part, the downhill, and that's where the Revel becomes that much more fun, especially through the chunk in these corners. Like I said, that combo of playfulness yet activeness, insane with CBF. And that's why I'm gonna say it, guys, has to be one of the best, if not the best, suspension design out there. Truly gonna miss these guys. Now, another thing you notice with the Rascal is how the front end feels a little bit more maneuverable. And I think that's because the reach on this, a little on the shorter side. This is an XL, but I would actually say probably one of the shorter bikes in the test coming through the chunk. Oh my God, that suspension feels so good through there. Little section, this up and over. I have a feeling taking this bike right up here. Yep, that pop. God, it gives you a good pop whenever you need it, which is so important in a short travel trail bike. But as you guys can tell, the pedaling platform, insane. And these are probably, I would say, the slowest rolling tires, which is a huge testament to how good this bike pedals, because it still feels like an amazing pedaler's, even though I'm not a big fan of these Continental tires. Coming into these corners, that's where it becomes really apparent. You're really able to kind of pop off. It generates so much speed out of nowhere. And what a capable 130 millimeters of travel. Like I said, that CBF, true a testament to how good that is. And man, the Geo as well, because like I said, I tried the Ritual earlier this year. That bike was a little bit more point and shoot. And I think Revel definitely intended this bike to be the more playful out of the bunch. I'll say, like I said, high speed stability with that shorter reach, not necessarily the best, but it is getting the job done. I love the suspension through these braking bumps. Now, this is a bittersweet moment because this might be the last downhill on the Revel Rascal. I will say, you guys, what an amazing suspension platform. I know I sound like a broken record and I keep going back to that, but it truly is insane how stable it makes chunk feel. And like I said, geo-wise, not the most aggressive, definitely a shorter reach, but still so much high speed stability and control, especially when things get rowdy like down here. That rear end just soaks everything up. And I love how the bike tracks on the trail. Revel really is one of those companies that was just different. And I appreciate that about the Rascal. It feels like a different bike out on the trails. And honestly, I think so many riders would appreciate this bike, especially if you want something that's still gonna act like a trail bike, but be able to tackle more rowdier sections of trail. And I would say my favorite part about this bike, like I said, I just keep going back to it, that suspension platform. I don't even feel like I'm going fast, which is insane. It's just so stable in those corners, so fun. Has an acceleration feel out of them through the chunk. God, Revel, you guys were amazing people, an amazing company, very bittersweet, and definitely sad making this video. But let's go back, give you guys my final impressions of the Revel Rascal. The first thing that I absolutely love about this bike is how it climbs. And I think a lot of that's gonna be a tribute to that CBF suspension platform. It was very interesting because it felt like the bike itself had you sitting a little bit higher in its travel on climbs. And what that led to was a very efficient feel out on the trail, both in and out of the saddles. I felt like the pedaling efficiency of this bike was awesome. And once again, there was a couple of times on certain climbs, especially when I was putting the power down, I had to check down to make sure that rear shock wasn't locked out, just because it really did feel that efficient both in and out of the saddles. Now, when it came time for the speed on the climb, climbs to decrease, like say on tech sections where you want a little bit more traction. That's where the interesting thing came from that CBF suspension design. Anytime it hit a bump, you could definitely tell the suspension was opening up and that traction you wanted on climbs became readily available. And once again, that's that magicness of that CBF suspension platform. Stiff when you need it to be, but at the same time supple when you need it to be, and not too many other suspension designs I feel like deliver that as well as the CBF platform. I also loved how maneuverable the Rascal was. I attribute a lot of that to them going with a little bit of a shorter overall reach from the front end. The front end definitely felt a little on the shorter side. I'm 6'2" for reference, about an 805 saddle height. And yeah, I would actually say this probably had the shortest reach out of this test, but what that helps out on the trails is it keeps that front end very maneuverable in and out of corners on climbs, especially when it's kind of more switchback style. We did a lot of testing on this bike out in Tucson, Arizona earlier this year, and that was very apparent on those tight, twisty switchbacks. Now, sticking with the CBF suspension line, but moving on to downhill, that's where this bike really does put a smile on your face. If you've never ridden a CBF style suspension bike, unfortunately, unless you pick up one of the liquidated Revels, you won't be able to try it with their platform. However, it is one of the most mind-blowing feels when you're out there. It almost feels like it is the perfect suspension design. It's very active through chunk. And going back to what I was talking about, that climb where it kind of feels like it's a little bit more supportive, it's sitting in that top stroke. When it comes time for the downhill and the speed starts to pick up, you can really tell that the CBF suspension opens up and it gives you that traction that you would want. Now, at the same time too, it still has a very good pop in it. So when you do want to push off of corners, it still has that playfulness you would want out of a well-balanced suspension platform. Time and time again, I was thoroughly impressed by how well the bike tracked through chunk, but at the same time too, how fast it would accelerate when I popped out of a corner. Now with the Revel Rascal, I really did also like the geo numbers on the descents. I like that the head angle is not too slack, not too steep, very responsive. That shorter reach also gives you that nimbleness from the front end. It doesn't have too long of a rear chainstay, but it's also not too short. So you get a good amount of stability coming from the rear end of the bike with that maneuverability coming from the front end. And that bottom bracket height is also not too high, not too low. Like I said, it's a very well-balanced trail bike, and I feel like what Revel was trying to achieve, they probably knew the Ritual was gonna be coming out, that longer travel 29er, and they wanted a bike to complement that really well. Because where the Ritual felt like it was a little bit more of a straight line, high-speed bike, you can definitely tell with the Rascal, Revel intended for you to be able to play around a ton out on the trails, but still having confidence when the going got rough. Now, what are some things that I didn't necessarily love about the Revel Rascal? It's definitely not the most aggressive bike out of the test. If your intentions are to ride a little bit more downhill style trails, but still have that short travel trail bike, I would say there might be a couple of other bikes in the test that might be a little bit more capable, especially when it comes time for steep, sudden hits or big drops. I will also say it did feel a little on the shorter side in terms of the XL when it came time for the reach. Now, some people actually might like that. Some people actually think reaches are getting too long. So if you want a little bit more of a maneuverable style feeling bike, you ride on a lot of places that are tight, twisty, I definitely think the Rascal would be a good bike to consider. Unfortunately, the third thing that I have to bring up here that I don't necessarily love about the Rascal or you should be aware of is going to be aftermarket support. Unfortunately, at this time, no one has talked about what is going to happen to future warranties with Revel bikes. I have a feeling that maybe Canefield will step in like they did with Gorilla Gravity, or maybe another brand will make sure that Revel customers are taken care of. However, that is something to consider. We don't know what the future looks like for Revel. Once again, this news is so recent, happened just a few days ago. However, that is something to consider there. But like I said, you guys, I've been absolutely loving my time on the Revel Rascal. This was a bike that after riding this and riding the Ritual, man, I had strong hope for Revel, especially in the year 2025. They released the Rerun, which is their e-bike. They released this bike, they released the Ritual, and it felt like they were making some serious progress, especially them being a little bit on the smaller side. Unfortunately, it does seem like a lot of that progress was halted. Who knows what the future holds for them, but I will say in terms of the Revel Rascal, it really is an awesome bike. CBF is an awesome suspension design, and I'm very thankful to have had an opportunity to spend some time on Revel bikes, especially the Revel Rascal, because like I said, this is an amazing option for that rider that wants a bike that's not too aggressive. They still want that trail bike style feel out of their bike. And once again, you guys, our thoughts are with everyone at Revel. Not only did they make great bikes, but they were amazing people. Our friends were at Revel. Hopefully they're able to figure something out for the future, because once again, amazing bikes, but even more amazing people. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comment section if you guys have any other questions, and also stay tuned to the conclusion video of this series to figure out how the Rascal stacked against the rest of the bikes in this series. And until next time, you guys, ride awesome.